UFC 302 is tonight, and here are my predictions for some of the fights in the main card happening. For those that are new to the channel, I use stats specifically from Tapology.com and the website for the UFC. And when I do my odds, I get odds from UFC's main sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook, like I said, the official sportsbook of the UFC. I spend the week before each pay-per-view doing film review and writing all about stats and such, just to help give you guys the best picks possible. But obviously we all know and love MMA, and we know that it's extremely unpredictable, so sometimes none of that matters. As always, remember to gamble responsibly and never put in more than you have, and if you have a problem, get help when needed. So to start with, when I make my prop bets, I usually do double chance on DraftKings, which is basically you can win by either decision or knockout or submission, that type of thing. So it gives you a slightly worse odds, but has a better chance of paying out. The first fight on the card for UFC 302 that I chose is Randy Rude Boy Brown versus Elizeu Copiera Zaleski dos Santos. Currently, the odds for this in DraftKings are Brown at -160 and Zaleski dos Santos at +130. So when I do film, I watch the last 2 fights per fighter for each matchmaking. And here are what I learned for Randy Brown's strengths and weaknesses. He has extremely accurate and powerful striking. He is great at containing and distance control. And when it comes to grappling, he has a solid ground game and is great at maintaining control over his opponents when they're on the ground. This allows him to basically, once they are on the ground, don't let them up. Control time. That's points. And he has an incredibly durable chin that's been proven by multiple fights. I think that this will help because if he can avoid Dos Santos' powerful strikes, then I think he can win based on cardio alone. His weakness is, like I said, he likes to keep a distance and do counter shots, whereas Dos Santos likes to push in. So we'll see if he allows Zaleski to get in close quarters and attempt to knock him out, And then his ground game is less rounded than Zaleski dos Santos, but we'll get back into that later. So the strengths that Dos Santos has that I think is going to be his best is his variety of striking and kicking. He's done heel kicks, front kicks, push kicks, leg kicks. He loves kicking people. And then his combination of grappling and striking. You'll see him be striking and he'll go straight from a knockdown into full mount and then full mount to back mount. But the problem with him is he does not like to do any submissions. And then finally, he has extreme recoverability in his chin. You'll see him get rocked or wobbled a few different times in a fight, but less than 20-30 seconds later, he'll be right back to normal. This is incredibly useful because you can get rocked only so many times and your chin can only take so much before it's absolutely rocked and useless. His weaknesses, like I said, are going to be cardio. After 2.5 rounds, Zaleski is usually dead in the water. He depends heavily on his chin in order to have any chance at winning. So I think if Randy Brown can survive past the 2.5 mark, he can get the win via late finish or decision. Zaleski also has limited striking defense because unlike most Brazilian fighters, he has a low guard, meaning his chin is completely left to open and he can take a lot of hits. And then, like I said before, limited submissions. He'll always choose to try and do ground and pound over any submission possible. When I say that, I mean to the extent that he'll be in the position to do a rear naked choke and he will try to hit him on the shoulder instead. My prediction for this fight is that Randy Brown will win via a decision or late submission. I believe this because he'll focus on distance control and picking Zaleski apart from a distance before doing striking accuracy and finishing the fight with a few shots or getting in the submission, which he has done in the past. The second fight I chose is Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. The current DraftKings odds are -265 for Almeida, and Romanov is at a +215. So these guys are both wrestlers, and really that's all there is to it about them. I say that in this fight, the strengths that Jailton's bringing in is his natural athleticism and superior conditioning. he didn't come in at 265, the limit for heavyweights. He came in at like 240, 250. But in reality, he moves like a middleweight and he's as fast as a middleweight, but he hits like a heavyweight. He has incredibly good control when on the ground and wrestling, and he can do takedowns from any position. And his best part is that his strategy is he's very good at adapting in the middle of a fight, no matter what the situation is. He realized that he wasn't going to be able to submit Derek Lewis, so instead he simply rolled and kept rolling on his back to ensure that Derek Lewis could not move. Again, his biggest weakness is going to be his chin. We learned that at UFC 299 when he went up against Curtis Blaydes. He went in for a takedown and got immediately uppercutted and knocked out in the second round. He did a great first round, and he actually did good holding his own against Curtis Blaydes, but he became predictable, and that's when Curtis Blaydes launched the uppercut that knocked him out, and the ref had to pull him off. So Alexander Romanov's strengths are going to be his knockout power. He came in at 265, meaning he's going to have more weight behind him, behind each shot, and his counter-strike strategy. He likes to counter simply because it's a lot easier than going straight for a fight. Just like Curtis Blaydes, I think that the best strategy for both these fighters is to attempt to get an uppercut when one of them shoots for a takedown. Both of these guys don't have the best chin, but I know Jailton Almeida's is worse than Romanov's. And the weakness that Romanov's going to have is his athleticism. He's fat right now. We all know this. 265 is not an easy weight to move around at. My prediction, finally, for this fight, my final prediction is going to be Jailton Almeida via decision or submission. I'm focusing and relying more on his natural skills as a wrestler and athleticism to keep him going. I think his cardio will also do a lot better in the later rounds, obviously. So 2.5 and over. Wow, my eyes messed up. The third fight I did was Kevin Holland versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. I'm so happy I got that name finally right. So the odds right now are Holland at -265 again, and Oleksiejczuk at +215. Some of the strengths that Holland is bringing into this fight are his chin, which has extremely strong durability. He's never really been knocked out cold, and he has one-punch knockout power, and then he's constantly pursuing more pressure, so he's trying to push up against his opponent and do as much damage as he can to get these fights out quickly. I'd say that he also has good striking defense for his fighting style, which is Kung Fu. He is always keeping that relatively high guard and keeping a distance where he has the length. And submissions, he has a high number of wins by submission, so I think that's going to be his greatest ally in this fight. Michal Oleksiejczuk is coming in on a loss against Michel Pereira via standing rear naked choke. Standing rear naked choke. And it was in the first round, so we know he's a bit weak and vulnerable to submissions. Some of the weakness that Kevin Holland has are his low guard. Okay, my bad. He has a low guard, meaning he has a decent striking defense by head movement, but he doesn't really tend to block. This means he's susceptible to strikes, and his striking accuracy lately has been going down the hill. He used to have a striking accuracy of like 70%. Now it's probably closer to 50, 55. And his takedown defense could be stronger when he's not anywhere near the octagon side. He's usually fairly good at using the octagon to get back up, but if you take him down in the middle, he's not getting back up again. Some of the strengths that Michal Oleksiejczuk is bringing to the fight is his knockout power. That's simple. He's at 185. Anyone over that has extreme knockout power at some level. He has a heavy chin and is shown to be able to take tough shots no matter how hard and how many. And he's constantly applying pressure just like Holland, so this should be a fun fight because of that. His biggest weakness is going to be his minimal striking defense because he doesn't care if he gets hit. He's going to keep going until he can get the knockout. And when it comes to grappling, it's a terrible takedown defense and submission defense. So my prediction is going to be Kevin Holland to win by knockout or submission. I'm really relying on his striking power and then his submission skills after a knockdown, or if he gets a trip, or even a takedown if he chooses to do it. The co-main event for UFC 302 is going to be a middleweight matchup between number 1 or number 2 ranked Sean Strickland and number 10 ranked Paulo Costa. The odds for this are negative 245 for Strickland to win and positive 200 for Paulo Costa to win. So Sean Strickland's strengths is going to be his pressure, jab, and defense. He has a decent chin, only getting knocked out by Zaleski Dos Santos with a spinning heel kick, which no one would have survived that. And then Alex Pereira's nuclear left hook, which we all know will kill someone. He has, like I said, striking accuracy because he does the natural 1-2. He's a pro at the 1-2 simple combinations. Sometimes he'll add a left hook to that. Sometimes he'll add a right hook, uppercut. But he has one of the higher striking accuracies. And then he has extremely high guard and possibly the highest striking defense in the UFC. I think it's like close to it. He is great at controlling the pace and keeping his opponents on the back foot, meaning they don't ever have time to really make a plan to slip, counter, and that type of thing. He just doesn't give them any chance. His weaknesses are going to be his power. People call him pillow hands. That is true. Most of his fights go to decision, and he has less wins by knockout. Or he has 13 by knockout and 13 by decision, and then like 1 by submission or something. And then he is extremely reluctant when it comes to grappling. He calls it gay. It's funny, but it's true. And he will always keep the fight standing for as long as possible. I think that's something Paulo Costa should really consider. So some of the strengths Paulo Costa is bringing to this are his extreme knockout capability. We all know he has one-punch knockout. He has a great chin because he's never been knocked out by anyone but Israel Adesanya, the former champion. He has great leg kicks and body kicks that he's used, especially against Luke Rockhold, to completely drain his cardio and energy and give him no chance to recover. And then he is great at applying pressure if no one else will, but that won't be a problem for Sean Strickland. He will continue to apply pressure. But Paulo Costa is great at countering, which in the Luke Rockhold fight, Rockhold rushed him and he got knocked down in the first 30 seconds, I think. So we know that he's got really good knockdown and knockout power. And then I think that the biggest weakness of Paulo Costa is going to be his cardio. It fades in the later rounds, and he leaves his chin vulnerable. Screw it, we're doing vulnerable. He leaves his chin vulnerable to striking because of a low guard that he maintains. He keeps his hands at his waist, which is what a lot of fighters do at middleweight, I'm learning. Don't like it. When it comes to his ground game, he has weak grappling skills and submission. He'll grapple if he absolutely needs to, but he would prefer to stand and bang like most fighters. My official prediction for this fight is Sean Strickland to win by decision. I think he's going to be able to apply more pressure, and his cardio is going to work better for him in the later rounds than Paulo Costa's will. The main event for UFC 302. This is a big one. I'm excited for this one, actually. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Islam Makhachev. The current odds are negative 650 for Makhachev and plus 470 for Poirier. This is a big gap, especially for a championship fight. The last one that was this big, it's been a while, but it's Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya, and even that one was bigger than this. So the strengths that Islam is bringing into this fight are very known. He trains under Khabib, so he has extreme high-level grappling skills. He has a high striking defense at to the point where no one can really hit him. He has extreme takedown accuracy using different types of trips while in the clinch and double legs effectively. But I think the biggest thing is fight IQ. He'll come up with fight strategies within the fight. So when he's I remember when he fought Alexander Volkanovski for the first time, he tried that that head kick 3 different times and it didn't work, but he kept setting it up. And when he threw it again in the second fight they did, he knocked him out cold the first attempt. So he learned as he was going and in the past. Second big thing I think that might be the biggest intelligence part for his fight IQ is that when he gets hurt or hit and rocked, his body doesn't even think about it and his mind doesn't have to. He will immediately go for a takedown. This is something that Umar Nurmagomedov, Khabib's cousin, I think is what it is, or brother, has also really adapted well. If they get in any trouble at all, they immediately go for a takedown and do not let their opponent hit them anymore until they've recovered fully. As always, Islam's weakness is going to be his striking, which is better than Khabib's, to say the least, but he has extremely low striking volume. He doesn't throw as much. And I noticed in the Alexander Volkanovski fight, when it hit round 5, which if this fight makes it there, then great, but if not, I'm not surprised. Islam was basically just laying on the ground while Volkanovski held him down. Like, Islam was not really doing much in that 5th round. He was just surviving. So I think fatigue's a big weakness for him. The strengths that Dustin Poirier is bringing into this fight is excellent striking. He's got to be one of the best boxers, if not the best boxer and striker in the UFC. And then leg kicks, he's been shown to be very effective with them. He'll hit that lead leg multiple times until their fighter can't use it anymore. And then he's good at applying constant pressure, which is exactly what I think he needs to do to beat Islam. He needs to make sure Islam can't do any takedowns. If Islam does, he needs to throw a knee, throw an uppercut. There's a few different options, but he needs to continue to apply constant pressure in order to prevent Islam from breathing or trying to switch stances and such like that. The biggest thing I think also that he's bringing in is that he has a lot of 5-round experience. If he can get up after the 1st or 2nd takedown, I think he might win it if he can get that first 5-round fight in. His weaknesses are, as always in champion fights, he's 0-2 right now, both due to rear naked chokes. He has a limited submission defense, which is going to be crazy if he gets stuck in a guillotine, rear naked choke, standing rear naked, or others. And then he has very little recoverability. Each one of his fights, we see him get hit by something hard and he'll get rocked and like kind of just lean, wobble. Somehow he recovers, but it's not always pretty. I think in this fight, he needs to prevent being hit and prevent being taken down to have a chance against Islam Makhachev. So my official prediction is Islam Makhachev by submission or knockout or decision. That can be any of those. Preferably, I think it'll be submission or knockout, though. He's going to focus on grappling. He's going to take him down into deep waters where he can, right in the middle of the octagon, right against the side. He does not care. He will take him down, and he will go for the finish almost immediately. I love Dustin Poirier, and I want him to win. I want his legacy to be finished, but I don't see him doing it. So my official overall predictions are going to be Randy Brown to beat Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Jailton Almeida to beat Alexander Romanov, Kevin Holland to beat Michal Oleksiuk, Sean Strickland to beat Paulo Costa, and finally Islam Makhachev to beat Dustin Poirier. If you were to put all these fights in a mainline parlay, which is just straight, this guy wins by this, or just wins, no props, then the odds would be positive 347. If you were to put $100 down, that would pay out 450. Now, if you wanted to do what I was doing, which is a prop parlay, it's a bit riskier, obviously, but you might have a better chance at winning because if you're doing double chance. I'm doing Randy Brown by submission or decision, Jailton Almeida by decision or submission as well, Kevin Holland by knockout or submission, Sean Strickland by KO or decision. You know it's not going to be a submission, that's for sure. And then Islam Makhachev by knockout or submission as well. If you were to put all of those prop bets on a single parlay, the odds would be positive 1,216. And for a $100 wager, you would get a payout of $1,300.16. Obviously, like I said, be very careful when you're making these bets. Some of them won't work. You already know this. And let me know below if you plan on tailing me in my bets. And as always, follow for more content. Yes.